and call the meeting to order. We actually have enough people to make a quorum, so thank you guys so much for joining up. This is the second time we've had quorum in the last year, I think. So that's pretty exciting.
We've had a couple meetings last a while, a couple members kept on saying, well, we are coming, but they never showed up.
Yeah.
So, I
So,
think that's solved.
Yeah, and then Caitlin's also here normally. She had a family thing come up, so she wasn't able to make it tonight, but she'll be here next month. So, great. Should we open up? Is there any public comment? Okay. Thanks for coming. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks again, and welcome to all the new members. So thanks so much for joining up. It's awesome to have you guys.
And your names?
Yes, I'm Ezzy.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm Mike. Hey.
Michelle.
Okay, so we can go through the newsletter if people want to. I didn't actually have a chance to look through the most recent newsletter, but we can talk about some of the ongoing events and other items. So Chili Fest happened last weekend, and that seemed successful. There, I think 3 of us at the booth, so we had a bunch of people that dropped by and chatted, and every once in a while would take a light bulb. We've got a bunch of LEDs to give away as free items. So that was a pretty good experience. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, we're down to just 1 vacancy now, so that's fantastic. So we can actually have quorum on a regular basis, which is very exciting. We have our fall Garden in the Box program, and so I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with these, but it's basically like a preset bunch of plants that have been pre-selected, and so you can just go plant them and they work well together. And so the Gardens in the Box happen in both the spring and again in the fall, and Town Superior helps actually provide a discount for residents who are interested in getting them.
Yeah, for whatever number we get, right? Is it 100 that we get or something?
Yeah, something like that. And it's more in the spring than in the fall. But
$25 off. How much do they go for?
they vary in price. I think they range from like what, $60 to over $100.
Yeah.
60 to 125, and then
Okay.
town sets.
Yeah. So like there's some smaller ones with like vegetables, for example, in spring, and then the bigger ones with a whole giant set of plants, and some of them are xeric as well. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Let's go through that stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying, I think we're all like kind of moving towards that.
I think so too. Just don't want to go too quickly in case I
There it all is.
miss something.
Happy corner.
Yeah, so there's some events coming up to dispose of medications and biohazard stuff. And then also an item for large household items and how to get rid of those. Essentially, residents have to schedule a pickup for those. We have a yard waste site. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, but that's a really, it was just renovated recently, and so that's pretty awesome. And it provides free compost and stuff for Superior residents, which is great.
You know, it's been my big issue with that yard waste site is how do people get their yard waste from their house to the site
Mhm.
without making a mess of the car?
Yeah.
Down to like grass clippings.
Yep. Yeah, and some people have pickup trucks and stuff, which makes it easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I know some of my neighbors have.
So do we
you know-
ever hand out like those paper bags people can put their grass clippings in to get over there? Or?
I don't believe we have, but that'd be a good idea. Yeah.
I don't know, just,
No, it's
That
actually.
can
that's
be-
always been my hang up. I'm a big believer in solid waste and recycling and all that kind of stuff, but it's just.
I think a lot of people don't use it for that reason, and it's frustrating because I brought up the topic of like,
Yeah.
why aren't their kids that are being entrepreneurial and doing this, that have their driver's license, you can get a trailer. Well, then the rule is they can't go and take somebody else's waste there. And it's just like,
Yeah.
well, that's just not really working for anybody then, is it?
Well, you have like the Boy Scouts, for example, do the Christmas tree.
But that's a special
disposal stuff.
arrangement, so on a regular
Right.
basis, like a kid who said, I'm gonna come pick up, these 10 houses yard waste every week, would potentially have problems checking in, the town said, but I think they're open to something like that, but I think we'd have to find like the right kid and start it up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Or group.
Yeah.
Forward some entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Well, we've had, mixed results and getting people to take free light bulbs, so.
That's true.
If there's other free stuff we can give, and if the big paper bag, if there's a town event that's in the right season, and we can just get some, we have like a modest budget to buy small things to give away, so.
See, maybe Arbor Day would
Yard
be a good
waste.
event
Yeah,
for
I think
that.
that's actually a really good.
Yard
idea.
waste bags could be an opportunity for that.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
It's a good solution.
I think the long-term solution would be the curbside pickup.
Yeah, I think that's the
That's
ideal.
another sore spot, as they've already indicated, but.
Well, but everything
Yeah.
changes. We've got a
People
couple
move out,
of new trustees
people
gonna
get
be
to move
coming
out
out.
sometimes, so. But not in this case, but anyway.
Martin,
As
did you
if I
have a
can
comment?
just interject for one thing, this is Martin
Absolutely.
Hill Town staff, so the committee already knows this, but in case some of the new members don't, the HOA and the town, and through each of their individual trash and recycling contracts, offers a compost subscription service for pickup, but it is not included with your base trash service. So that service is available. And if the committee was interested in providing bags at events, that might be a good replacement, like you might describe, for the light bulbs, since the light bulbs used to be such a popular item in the older times of events. Just an option. But I wouldn't want anybody who's
Mhm.
watching or participating in a meeting to not understand that there is
True. There
a
is
compost
an
subscription
option.
service
Yeah,
available.
that's true.
And you'd have to arrange to have the bags picked up, and that'd be a whole different, that'd be a fee again, so.
Well, I thought the discussion was about having a bag so that it would be suitable to induce people or help promote the use of the yard waste site by not having the clippings loose in your car, but using the bag, and then somebody would, a homeowner or somebody.
Yeah, 'cause
could
like,
do it.
we need something like that with SCP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can do grass, they can't.
Just
do-
need something to
they
put in.
That sticks a lot. They're not good for brush. Those bags.
Yeah, I was
Bags.
thinking, it was exactly what Martin said.
True.
Put the
Yeah.
grass clippings in the paper bag and take it to the yard waste site on your way
Yeah.
up Rockaway Park, probably going somewhere.
Mhm. I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
Thanks.
And I assume the bags are compostable,
I would assume so. Okay. Yeah.
make sure they're not plastic lined.
Right, exactly. It's caused some new problems.
Sorry.
The Do Good program is, I'm not sure if you guys have dogs and been down to the dog park. We have some compostable dog bags for dog waste there. And so as long as people use the right bags and put them in the right place, then that gets composted.
Okay.
So that's been a pretty successful program.
Are all the bags around all the trails, are they all compostable?
No, it's just the ones in the dog park.
Okay.
So they're black and they say they're compostable.
Okay, got
That would be like the next pipe dream.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about expanding the use of biodegradable poop bags that are compostable, but the problem is that they need to be disposed of properly to be actually composted, and so it's kind of a mix of having the right bags and then also having the right places to drop that off. So yeah, it's something I'd be happy to discuss further, but that's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I see one more thing to do.
No, not at all.
That's the town's community, the larger community park facilities, Kuffner Field and Community Park and Purple Park, where there's food, we've been adding compost to 3-hole trash cans ever
Oh,
since.
yeah. Okay.
The approval of the Founders Park project 4 to 5 years ago.
And that's just for human food, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it's
that-
it's
so
not
idea
the same
when
for
we were
dog
going
waste.
through this as a
Yeah.
policy decision with the board at the time was when there's pavilions or barbecues or someplace
Mhm.
where it would make sense where people would be staying for an extended period of time and have food, then it would make sense to have the additional expense to include compost service.
Yeah.
But at a lot of intermediary trails or trails that are in between fingers of open space, where the people aren't setting and eating regularly or generally enough, it didn't at the time make sense to consider an added
Yeah.
compost cost for those
Mhm.
projects. So just as a reminder to the group, there's trash, there's recycling, and the compost, but it's not everywhere. The task that this group established several years ago was to have trash and recycling everywhere where there's trash. And I'm not sure how close we are to getting that to that goal. I haven't touched base with Karen on that lately.
Mhm.
But compost is part of what happens at the larger facilities now.
Yeah, And it's worth noting too that the dog waste in particular has to go through a special process to be composted, so it's a little bit different from the regular compost.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. So went through newsletter items. Does anyone have anything else to add about Chili Fest beyond kind of what I described earlier? I guess Mike, just you.
Yeah, nothing else.
Yeah, it was successful.
Did you guys do an activity, or what'd you do?
We were just at the booth and answering questions, and people come up and talk to us occasionally. Sometimes they're looking for ProStack or some of the other committees, but yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty good.
Gave stuff away.
Yeah.
Light bulbs.
Or at least we tried to.
A couple people took whole boxes,
That's true.
which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we next have an update on the Superior Green Business Breakfast, and I can't remember who attended that. Was that Caitlin, or did anyone else?
What was that?
That was earlier this month, I believe. It was an event put on by the Chamber of Commerce to kind of promote the new green business work that we've been doing with the PACE program from Boulder County. And so it's an opportunity for local businesses to come and get some free breakfast and learn more about it. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but I can't remember. Actually, I believe Karen was in attendance, so maybe she can give an update on for us next time when she's here. Let's see, and then staff meeting with National Car Charging.
Again, Martin Toth, town staff. I'll jump in on this one. I'm sorry to be kind of bifurcating my participation here. So Karen had something come up, and she's not able to be here, so I'm trying to fill in for her. So there were two items that were on the agenda that I wanted to touch on. One was this one, 3E, the staff's meeting with RJ Harrington from the National Car Charging folks, and then also the fourth item on the IGA for the website. So just quickly to update you on the meeting, we had a chance to sit down with one of the folks who's a Louisville-based consultant who works for National Car Charging and some other electric vehicle support equipment and some other types of sustainable energy companies around the country. Talk about perhaps leveraging his knowledge to help us figure out some locations. This group has talked over the last several months, really over the last year or so, about identifying potential locations for additional EV stations around town. And we talked about that during the budget dialogue in the spring, about identifying locations, number one, and doing that perhaps at the end of this year, beginning of next year, and thinking about the 2020 budget process that'll start in about 6 months, about what might make sense for locations and the potential budget for what those locations would look like. RJ Harrington has the expertise and the industry knowledge to help the committee identify some locations now, which was great.
Excellent.
So we had a chance to sit down with him a few weeks ago. He said that he would be glad to come to an upcoming meeting and just think about the feasibility of some of the locations around town, what might make sense, and go over those with the committee, which was great. It was great to hear from him. The charge point stations that the town has that we replaced 2 years ago were actually purchased through National Car Charging and one of their resellers. So it was great to have somebody who's familiar with our community, lives right here across the highway in Louisville, and was willing to provide some industry expertise to help us prioritize those.
Excellent.
So look for him on an upcoming agenda, hopefully next month.
Okay.
Not next month, and definitely by November. And then if I recall the committee's dialogue at the time, it was identify the locations and think about what might make sense for a budget request for the 2020 budget as a match for a grant proposal, and then also what the installation cost will be. Like we talked about at the time, there's some great grant programs through the RAQC, Regional Air Quality Commission, and some other federal earmarked grant programs for the actual equipment, but it's the installation and bringing over power that can be the really expensive element. And that's ultimately what happened with the 3 stations that we have. It was the installation that was much more expensive than actual equipment. So thinking about what that budget request would look like next year for the 2020 budget was kind of the second part of this. So having RJ's experience would be great.
Excellent. Thanks.
Question on that. So, Martin, we discussed the need for that expertise and for further study, and that we would request a few $1,000s in the town budget to fund someone to do that work. Is your sense sense that RJ is a candidate to be funded to do work as a consultant for the town?
He will be, yes.
Yeah.
We can chat with him about hours and go into a little bit more specifics, but we will be able to coordinate with him. He let me know that he'd be very reasonable in providing his expertise, because really the ultimate goal is just to help the town find some solutions. And he's here, and he has the knowledge, and it's easy for him to do. And he also happens to represent several groups who provide this. He's not dedicated. He doesn't represent one particular vendor, so he'll be a good resource for helping us figure out what might make sense in terms of equipment as well. So, long story short, we will be able to cover the expense, and hopefully it doesn't, won't take too many hours. And he already has a lot of the expertise, and it should be a fairly short turnaround time. But it is something that we'll be able to cover with the sustainability-related project budget line.
Excellent. Cool, thanks.
What services does he provide? Just tells us where to put the charger?
Well, Martin would know the answer to that better, but I can speak to what we think we need, which is that, where to locate the chargers, how many of which type, some strategy or some range of proposals that this committee could share or that he could share to the town board for decision making on budget. We might say we want to be ambitious and put 6, fast charging stations, the best type in the town center. That might be very expensive. We would need some further study to actually understand how expensive it would be. So if a couple options of maybe, a large, medium, small, or which mix of the fastest chargers or the slower ones would make sense based on how many electric vehicles we might expect to be using the town center and what the cost is, so that we could go to the town board more formally and say, here's a range of options, here's how much the matching grant from the state could cover and how much the town would have to cover, and then kind of ask them to make a decision about, is the town going to make some huge investments if it's a big infrastructure upgrade, or something more modest, so we can present the right information to the board for consideration. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, in addition to town center, there are a number of locations that we've looked at over the years. Some of the park facilities, like the dog park, or near Autry Park, or near Wildflower Park, perhaps in the turnaround parking lot area. There are some places that are in town now that don't have the appropriate electric infrastructure that would need to be brought over. So helping prioritize some existing locations that would make sense because of their location or their ease of access or just the popularity. The community park charge point station is used all day, every weekend, all year, no matter the weather. So there's just some locations that might make sense. So helping get a sense of what might be the best location is kind of the flip side to what Mike just mentioned. So in addition to town center, making maybe some front-end investment and having appropriate electric infrastructure when development happens, retrofitting some of our existing areas or existing park areas or bigger community gathering areas would be the other focus.
Cool. I think we can move on to item 4, which also you're going to talk with us about. So I'll let you just stand up there.
So I'll just stay up here. I'm sorry to monopolize the conversation so much. So the fourth item here, the renewal of the intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County for the Hazardous Materials Management Program and Facility is a mouthful. The town has been a participant since the late 90s in the HMM site. So if you think of the...
Okay, sure. Yeah, I was just there yesterday.
So if you don't mind bringing up the... Actually, can I just borrow the cursor?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, that's right. I have to bring visuals because I can't just listen to myself ramble. So Michelle, the facility itself, so the county's website has some great reference material about their household and then also business-related hazardous waste. And the brochure that you guys have all seen, I think I've sent this to you guys in an email in the past, and we have it out front here, and we put it as a link in the newsletter, is this one. So the household hazardous waste for disposal. So we've been passing through the information and been partnering with the county for, I think, almost 20 years. I think it predates to when the Boulder County had a recycling committee that advocated for this. And then when the county land use department gave up the oversight of the household materials or hazardous materials management program, and the county took it on as a program. All the communities in the county, including I think Lyons and Jamestown, participated in an IGA to fund the construction of the hazardous materials management site. And we've had 3 or 4 IGAs that were 5 years in length, and we're at the end of the 4th one. So it's time to think about re-upping on this IGA. So I've got some information I'll kind of go over here with you. But at the end of this, the point of me bringing this to the committee tonight is to just remind you that we're in this, share this with you, and ask you all for a recommendation, because when the town board has considered this in the past, like many programs and program items that we partner with that are specific to the purview of a committee or commission, it makes sense to ask you all what your opinion is. So I was going to go through a little bit about what the program is, what the facility does, and then if you would consider a recommendation to make to the board, tonight would be a great opportunity for that, because it needs to go to them before the end of the year. I'm going to work with the town manager to try to get this on an agenda coming up over the next few weeks or a couple months to make sure that this happens, but we're all kind of in the process of bringing the updated IGA to all the elected officials in each of the jurisdictions in Boulder County. And then the city and county of Broomfield is also a participant, and the Weld County portion of Erie is also a participant in this program.
We gotta grab the quorum while we can.
I know. Yeah. I'm glad it worked out.
Better position going forward, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Take advantage of it. It's good fun.
So like I mentioned, we've been part of this group for the last 20 years, literally. The facility itself, if you haven't been there, is great. They offer tours. There's kids programs there. If you haven't had a chance to go there, I think pretty much everybody here has had a chance. And then the staff that work at this particular place are fantastic, and they come and help us host the household hazardous waste event that the town coordinates with both EcoCycle's charm staff and then Boulder County's hazardous materials management staff. We've done that the last couple of years at Eldorado KA, and it's been a great project, been a great program for a long time. We've been trying to get out the word, and that's why we had the brochures, this great brochure that their staff put together this year, we've tried to make available. And then also it's been at the bottom of the newsletter as our ongoing important information reminders for probably the last 9 or 12 months. But really the point of the facility was having one centralized location to help manage hazardous materials and making sure that they don't end up being inappropriately disposed of with regular household trash or ending up in the town's in the water supply or any of the drainage ways in the county was a real issue. And it made sense at the time when folks who founded this group in the late 90s were able to motivate all the jurisdictions within the county to participate in this joint facility. So having the proper disposal and finding ways for residential household and hazardous materials go to one location, as well as small amounts for business materials, because there are a lot of small businesses that aren't necessarily going to have a commercial trash account to be able to coordinate what to do with some small amounts of household hazardous waste that comes up through the course of business. So that was really the kind of the genesis of the program starting, and it's been a great project ever since. Like I mentioned, the IGA expires this year, so all the jurisdictions in the county are working through approving the amendment to this one to renew it for another 5 years. Got the brochure up here. It talks about what the services are. I think everybody here, for the most part, is either familiar with it or has had a chance to visit the site, hopefully. I'm familiar with the site, and I'd be glad to try and answer any questions. And then Lisa Skumats is very familiar with the facility, too, just from her background in this industry for a long time, but I'll be glad to try and answer any questions. Michelle, you mentioned the location. If you think of Recycle Row on 63rd, there's the EcoCycle site, Resource Center, and then part of this is in that area also is this facility as well. So there's a great kind of centralized location in the eastern portion of Boulder County for all these services, which are generally pretty easy to get to. And if you think back to the lines that we've had at the household hazardous waste event, there's been a couple of people who are sitting at this desk who've been there with me that have heard people say, in the time that I spent in line, I could have driven to the facility and back maybe twice in the time that it took me to get there, which is awesome. But at least it's a way to remind people and make it introduce the facility to people who wouldn't perhaps otherwise be aware of it. They wouldn't click on the link in the newsletter, or they wouldn't be familiar with the project. So that's why it's always been so beneficial to have the project in town and to offer the program.
One really quick
didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
What was that?
I mean, that
If
doesn't
you
help
have
me,
an
but.
electric car, you get in for free. Charm.
At Charm? Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So I know some people are like, I don't want to pay $2 to get in.
Mhm.
Just go buy an electric car.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the duality of having the household hazardous waste event is you have the Charm folks and then you also have the county folks. The county folks focus specifically on the hazardous materials waste, and there's not a fee for that, which is great to be able to drop this off. As long as it's not a business, they have some parameters that they have on their website. I want to say it's 400 pounds a year. There are some parameters that they have.
Have they changed over the years what they accept and what they don't, and are there gaps in what they accept?
Jonathan, I'd be glad to forward this.
Do you have that search tool up? I think that's one of my favorite things on that whole site. Is like,
For
this is
EcoCycles?
what I have. Where do I take it? And I mean, like I've literally been stuck to find anything they don't have a resource for. Which
Oh, I don't have the keyboard. I don't have any power.
Another cool thing with the
Well.
household hazards space.
I can give you a keyboard if you'd like.
Pick up, paint, and stain for free. So.
Yeah, that's one of the great benefits. They offer, it's on this sheet. So in addition to taking the materials, it's also a great drop-off spot where you can receive like paint and like paint thinner and some other great products rather than buying. Yeah, so reusable products. So reusable products are available free of charge to residents and businesses during regular hours of operation. So all the stuff that you drop off that might not be of use to you, they keep if there's a good quantity of it or if it's in good quality, and then they make it available to anybody. So it's become a great resource. The folks who visit there are taking advantage of just a great service. You know, it's been a good program. So let me get through my information real quick to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you look at the little does not accept box with the that's just a hazardous waste.
So the town's cost to help offset this investment by the county. The county houses this, and they do a great job coordinating it and staffing it, but each of the jurisdictions who are participants in this IGA pay a proportional cost. So if you think of Boulder, you know, they pay over 40% because they have such a high population, a high participation rate. We're about 2 or 3% of Boulder, or of the county, and we pay about 2.23% of their net participation. So we pay our proportional cost.
How much is that?
It's about, I'd say it was about $16,000 this year.
For the whole year?
Do we get a bill or do we pay it up front?
We get a bill quarterly based on...
That's based off of how many Superior residents use it?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. All right, so it's not a flat,
Wow, cool.
it's not a fixed upfront
No,
fee.
it's based on participation.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good deal then.
So I was
Yeah,
gonna,
that's
what
great.
population, I was gonna say, we should get a bit of discount, because no one, because of the distance issue, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an equity thing. You know, when the county started this, it was to make sure that the people who do show up, wherever jurisdiction they're from, pays their fair share. So although our population is much smaller than Boulder, if we had a ton of people going there, but we're only paying for 2%, it would be inequitable. So I understand why it makes sense, and it does. We've had some modest increases over the years. I went back and had a chance to look at what we've done over the last couple of years. So we typically have about... First couple of years I was doing this, it was about 300 to 400 people a year were participating from the town. Now it's in the 400 to 500 range, and that's why the net cost is going to be budgeted for next year at about $18,000. So it's been in the kind of $15,000 to $16,000 range for a couple of years. We're going to plan on some growth for next year and plan for about $18,000 and plan for 400 to 500 people to participate. The net budget for the entire program is over $800,000. So again, it's up right at about 2%. Proportional costs. So it's been a real positive partnership end of the day. It's one of the things that if each jurisdiction who's in the county tried to offer this service, it would be really expensive to get the individual contractors to provide this service for a day or a week or a weekend. So it's been great to kind of cooperatively purchase this service in partnership with the other jurisdictions and having Boulder County have a dedicated division just for this and house the facility. So at the end of the day, it's been a great program.
So I'd like to make a motion to support this facility as part of our part of it, responsible and safe management of solid waste.
a unanimous, we all say we do it, or do we need, I mean, you gave all the dialogue to support it, so.
So yeah, it doesn't need to be unanimous, but it would be great if it was unanimous. If the board wanted to, or the committee wanted to consider Lisa's motion for a recommendation in support of approving this IGA, it can be captured in the meeting notes. I don't know who's taking meeting notes.
Oh, good point.
So you motion to,
I moved, somebody needs to second it,
Oh, I
discuss it.
second it.
So somebody can second it, and then
That's such a movie.
yeah.
Now we can discuss it.
Would someone mind taking notes just for to record this? I can.
What do we need? What do we need in our notes? Any particular format I need to take?
We adopt a motion to
Okay.
recommend to the town board that we continue this partnership. Cool, thanks.
Is there anything to discuss, or are we all on a agreement?
Seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Does anyone disagree? Guess we can do all in favor. Are you in favor as well?
I'm sorry.
Excellent.
Sorry, it's like I never get calls from.
All right. So yeah, passes unanimous.
It took a lot to get the thing built, so.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I
fantastic
underestimated.
resource to have, so that'd be great.
Sorry about that.
It was great to
That's
do the
fine.
research and
And
see how.
Hillary was back this week.
Oh wow, really? It was great to see her name on some of the documents. I've got a big folder on this, and I hadn't looked at it in a while. It was great to see Hillary's name. So one of the
She was
staff
at the
members from
CFR
Boulder County.
event the other day, Tuesday.
Hillary Collins is the staff member who was working for the county at the time. I think she was in land use when it started.
She was what?
She might have been in the land use department when it started, and she was one of the people that helped marshal this program through. So I thank you for letting me blather on about this program. I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys too much about this, really since the last time the IGA came up, and that was probably with the previous staff.
But I'm going to tell you that there's a really interesting, one of the neighboring counties, I think it's Jefferson County, allows you to put your hazardous waste, I hope it's restriction of all kinds, in a special plastic bag and put it in the curb, and they'll come and collect it.
Really?
It's a pretty cool program.
Not like every
First I
week,
was like,
but like
oh,
once.
thinking, oh my God, if you put things together, they could be explosive, oh my God, right? But apparently, they must put enough restrictions on it or whatever, but yeah, that's how they do it. I think that's Jefferson County.
Like once in a while, or like every week?
It's a regular thing. You can have them.
Wow.
You might have to call them to get them to come get it, but
Okay.
they come get it.
Huh.
I thought
That's
that's kind
excellent.
of cool programs.
Very cool.
So Mike, thanks for taking that note. So what I'm going to note for the cover memo that goes to the board is that the committee recommended the board continue participation and approve the IGA for another 5
I'd
years.
say unanimously,
Unanimously.
enthusiastically.
All right, unanimous recommendation from ACES
At last.
to continue participation and approve the IGA amendment for another 5 years.
Thank you.
So thank you for letting me monopolize some of your time. If there's something else I can help with, I'll be glad to.
What we're here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, steal back the mouse.
Oh, the power.
Thanks so much. All right, so our next discussion item is the Green Business Recognition Program. And Caitlin's been doing a lot of work on that. But Mike, did you want to talk about the meeting earlier today, or is that, I guess, the next item?
That would be number 6.
Yeah, okay. Well, do we have anything to discuss tonight in Caitlin's absence about the Green Business Recognition Program?
I guess for us new people, could you give
Yeah,
us
sure.
a 1 or 2 minute summary about what it's all about?
Absolutely. So it's largely about working with the PACE program at Boulder County,
Okay.
which is the partners. Oh no, totally blanking on the name. It's basically overarching sustainability, so looking at energy and water and waste diversion, helping local businesses become more sustainable. And so they offer a wide range of kind of
Technical assistance.
technical assistance and information, and also help with getting rebates, for example, from Excel and some of those other groups.
Doing the legwork for them so that they don't have to spend the time doing it. Really.
Basically, yeah. And so it's a great program. We've sort of engaged with them a little bit previously, but this year we're really trying trying to engage with them much more heavily and have a kind of strong initiative that we're pitching to the community and really making the driving awareness of this. And so as part of that, one of the things we're working with PACE on is a recognition program so that local businesses that do get work with PACE and improve their efficiency or sustainability can get recognized for that at different levels. And so we'll highlight businesses through several different channels throughout the town and try to promote them as much as possible in different ways. And part of that's about making some decals that they can post in their windows and things like that to show that they're being sustainable. So it's kind of in line with a lot of other local cities and towns nearby, like Louisville has one, Lafayette has a similar program. So just kind of bringing us up in line with it. So I think it'll be a really excellent program. We're just getting up and running now. We just put out a press release and some other stuff. So yeah, just getting off the ground now. Great. All right, so I think we can skip to discussion item 6 then.
Yes, great.
Is you, Mike?
So so we talked last year in developing our work plan about a desire to track our performance, see in sustainability generally, define what that even means for us, track it over time compared to other communities. But we haven't really done much work to follow up on that in our work plan this year. So today I met with Leah Yancey from the Boulder County Sustainability Office, and we talked about we just brainstormed about how to measure sustainability performance, what the metrics might be, how we would get data. We've come up with a few ideas for what that is. So let me share with you what we said the goals of this activity would be in general, and then a draft of what we came up with. So the goals for monitoring our performance and creating some type of scorecard or tracker would be first to better define and prioritize what sustainability means for this town. So on the wall there is support environmental sustainability as a town board goal, but we provide more definition and specificity to what that means and what the priorities are. We would help in establishing actual targets against those. So if we have a metric, we can have a target and a goal that the town endorses and tries to pursue. We would track our progress against that over time to inform policy in the town and action. Say we have a target for waste diversion, for example, that one exists, and we can know, are we meeting that target or are we not? Is there something more that we need to do in order to meet that target? So that would make that all more transparent, both to this committee and to the public.
Do we have to just be comparing to ourselves, or could we be comparing to other communities to try to drive progress by?
Yeah, we could do whatever we like. What I will propose based on our conversation is that we start with comparing against just seeing where we are just for ourselves, because the data may not exist for other communities. It may be a bigger undertaking to get other communities to report data on a comparable basis that may not exist yet. Depends on what the metric is. So as a starting point, my suggestion is that we determine which things are most important to us and gather the data and try to start tracking it. And then a second goal would be to work with the county and with other communities to get them to report the same metrics so we can actually compare ourselves to them. But that, the data may not be there to do that immediately.
You did some brainstorming.
Yeah, okay, so
did you do any research to find out if there are existing metrics in place in other communities like you're talking about?
There are, we have sort of a mix of yes and no. Okay. We can, I can pull up the little graphic that we have.
RCAP has a time series of data they've been collecting from this community as well as the others on the waste side of things.
Who does, sorry?
RCAP, the Resource Conservation Advisory Board. We did that data collection for a number of years, and then I think, I'm not sure who's doing it now, but Charlie heads that committee. I can find out the latest version of that database, but it's every community in the county fills out a little form, or else call and interview them and fill out the form, which is the way it worked for about half the communities. and it's, do you have pay-as-you-throw? Do you have, it's the things that EcoCycle later put into a matrix as well. Pay-as-you-throw, you know, what's your diversion rate currently, et cetera, and that's, I think, a natural thing to piggyback on, and it lets us do both things at once, our performance and compared to other communities. So the recycling ones, I can work to get that information.
Okay, great.
For this community and others, because we benchmark, we do a lot of work in the area, and so we benchmark all the communities in the county, and as well as Broomfield and around the state, actually. So we do the recycling plan for the state, so got data from all of them.
Okay, yeah, great. Cool. Let me just.
Not much is collected, as far as I know, on water, energy, or other.
Right, exactly. So it's a mix. Let me put up this thing. So we mocked something up as an example. So this part, what you see here, does not compare to other communities. Would be only Superior. So as a hypothetical, we would, have 6. My proposal would be that we do something that can be on one page and can be simple and is not overwhelming. So 6 might be a reasonable number of things to track, and we can track progress over time. And so here's the 6 categories that we have right now. The exact metrics might not be the right ones. We can get feedback from you guys. But I'll just talk through them and give you the flavor of what I heard from Leah about the county's information. So greenhouse gas emissions, the county has just released a county-wide greenhouse gas inventory, which includes community by community data on emissions. Prior data exists from 2005 and 2011. I don't have it in here, but it does exist. So for instance, they said Superior's carbon footprint is 109,000 tons of CO2. That would be the metric for the town. And it'll be interesting to pull the past data and see, are we going up or down? Would, the communities of Boulder and Longmont, maybe others, have specific reduction goals over the long term? We can consider if our town would want to do anything similar. But we can at least start tracking it. The county does that inventory every 5 years or so. So we don't get it updated very frequently, but the county does the legwork on that. So that's one that just came out.
The county gave you that number, or they have that number.
The county,
Superior.
Yeah, they do, and that exists for other communities. Now, it's dependent on the size of the community. So if we were going to benchmark, we might want to do it on a per capita basis, something like that.
That's going to be my suggestion, is like
Right.
have a per person or per capita basis.
Yeah, my thought is that for for a community as a whole, as we look at our community's progress over time, is that it's best to look at it on a total basis, because the total basis is the thing that impacts climate change more so than per capita. And that's how other communities have generally done it, is to set a total target. But that's what we have there right now. Waste, if we were to highlight one waste number, I believe it would be diversion. And you guys can help me who've been on this committee longer. My understanding is there is an existing town goal on the books, although it's sort of fallen out of people's attention span. I'm not recalling, was it 25% or something?
50% early on.
Really?
It was 50%, and we've been at about 24% for eons.
Or what's measurable?
Virtually no change.
Is that commercial and residential?
Residential.
We don't commercial data really.
Okay.
So the waste connections, or whoever picks up our garbage and recycling, keeps track of all this data?
They do, but we've also done independent waste characterization, waste sorts and weights and measurement and all that sort of stuff periodically.
Yeah, and so I have a question for those who know this. What data do we get? There's
Lower than the US
the town has one
average.
contract, I understand, and we get data from the provider for that, and then the HOA has a second one, and those are definitely sources we have, and then we don't have it for the businesses. Can you clarify that?
We don't have it for the businesses, and the one we have for the town I'm gonna suggest is an estimated amount, because they don't collect only from the town, they go to the routing goes into other communities as well, and
They
so
take the truck
they end
in.
up estimating the percent of accounts and that sort of thing. Am I wrong?
Again, Martin Toth, town staff. I'm sorry to keep interjecting. I didn't have a chance to introduce myself to a couple of new members. I serve as the town's assistant town manager. We don't have a sustainability-related staff member who's actually dedicated to this task. So the trash contract, the trash and recycling contract, has been under the town manager's office since it started in 2008, and our office continues to provide that support.
But they are required to do reporting. And I'm just suggesting that the reporting we get from the town,
From the town's portion.
that our town isn't big enough to fill up a whole trash truck. So we end up, the town portion. And so they end up, estimating how much trash is due to this town versus the rest of the route and all that.
And so
sort of
once from
stuff.
Rock Creek, they know, like, that recycling truck goes back, they weigh it, they know exactly how much, and the same with the trash.
And so we've done some waste sorts and waste weighing of a statistical sample of households in the community in the past. Maybe about 4 of them stopping maybe 8 years ago or something like that. Nobody seemed that interested. But it was 24, 24, 24, 24. And the numbers that they were getting, I think, from the HOA aren't that different from 24, right?
So yes, so I guess the big picture when I went through with this group, I want to say 5 or 6 months ago, when Jim Payne and I went through the HOA's annual total and then our annual total, it has been between 24 and kind of 27% for several years, just on what's collected by Waste Connections. It's self-reported evidence, it's self-reported data from Waste Connections for both the town's contract, which includes original town, and several neighborhoods that aren't part of the Rock Creek Master HOA's trash and recycling contract, and then they get a separate monthly report. And the HOA staff members and I compare those notes, and like you mentioned, Lisa, the net percentages haven't changed very much. The composition might have changed some over the years, but it is reported data that we get from Waste Connections. I don't know what their truck routing is. I don't know whether or not that's true.
It's common in this area, but that 24 predates the town having a contract as well. So it's that. I think we started doing those waste sorts in 2001, and so that's. But on the commercial side, it's very tricky because every business contracts individually with a hauler, so there's no routing of everybody through town. There's no tonnage. There's no the state, the city. Nobody requires reporting by haulers of the commercial tonnage. The state has a very hard time collecting that information. They get some stuff from the MRFs and whatever, but it's pretty rough, to say the least.
So it seems like the take-home point when this has come up in years past is that it's self-reported data, and that it might be a little suspect.
But the self-reported data is very different from statistical data. That's
So the point of moving the dial from the 50% goal that the board approved, I want to say in 2001, hasn't changed. The board hasn't adopted a different number. What the town has done in terms of projects and programs ever since then, ever since the original group of Waste Diversion Advisory Committee members were advocating for having recycling included as part of the trash contract for the HOA, hasn't changed. It's just how it looks has changed, just as lifestyles have changed. But the overall number reported by the haulers hasn't changed, like Lisa mentioned.
There has been some change in the town's performance over the long run, though, because when we did the sorts, we did statistical in both parts, including both parts of the town with dichotomy, figuring out what the difference was. And there was significantly less recycling in original town, because before the contract, original town contracted individually, hauler by hauler, and they had to pay extra for recycling. So how many people signed up for recycling? Not a whole heck of a lot. But the HOA service has been pretty much the same with the blip of introducing Recycle Bank for a period of maybe 3 or 4 years, and it didn't change recycling dramatically.
Having the town's contract was a big change when that happened in 2008. That can't be understated.
It bumped it up to even with the rest of the stuff.
It was so good.
So that was a great move of the needle, even though it might not have necessarily changed that overall kind of metric that you're looking at, Mike. just having the change in lifestyle
171
was
versus
huge.
2,000 something households is,
Mhm.
yeah.
But to have an entire portion of town not have recycling and not have a coordinated trash and recycling service was a big deal. So included in that total from Waste Connections does not include anything that goes to the yard waste site. It doesn't include anything that's, there's another, so yard waste site, and then one other item that slips my
We used to have
mind.
cleanup, and for a year or two, it did recycling.
The bulk item cleanup changed significantly as scrappers took over pretty much anything that had any value that was picked up during the bulk cleanup item.
And when we couldn't do Goodwill income anymore, that really hurt, so.
It wasn't very productive when we had the charities here. So that's a little bit of background on what the town manager's office has touched base on related to what you're interested in. I didn't think to ask Ezzy if you had a chance to introduce Sandy Hammerly to the group, if everybody.
Oh, I didn't. My apologies. Trustee Hammerly has joined us this evening.
I'm just standing in for Chris.
Yeah, so thanks for coming in and joining us.
It's interesting.
Sorry for not introducing you earlier.
No, that's okay. No problem.
And then there was one member of the public that was here, Chris Alexson, was sitting in just to observe.
Excellent.
So I just wanted to capture that for the record.
Thanks for joining us.
And since you're doing the meeting notes, Mike, but I think you know Chris's name.
Yes, I know Chris's name. Okay. Well, let me tell you what the other metrics are and what our considerations were. So, I mean, the categories then were climate, waste, energy, water, mobility, and air quality, or transportation and air quality. So, I mean, I guess the spirit of this is we talked about what we thought we could measure that was meaningful, and are open to your feedback as to what's meaningful. On energy, we talked about a portion of total energy that comes from renewable sources. There could be. It's not clear that there's the right data, but it would be great to include energy efficiency and conservation, and somehow in this total. But Excel does make statistics available by community for Superior and others to show what our mix is and how much comes even from people's solar on their rooftops and other things. So there's reasonably good data that Excel puts out, both about electricity and natural gas use for energy use in the communities where they have customers. So that could be a grounds for this.
Is there any way to get per capita energy consumption data? I'm not sure if that's something that Excel provides or if there's other sources for that.
Yes.
But
Yep.
that could potentially be one way of looking at efficiency trends over time.
Because I know you're trying to keep
addition
it
to
cheap, but I
renewables.
think you can sort of split a couple of these into their own, still in their own little box, and include the per capita and.
I think even if we want to push it to one page front and back, that would still be
Yeah, cool.
doable.
Okay. Yeah, they do have that data.
Okay.
Or they have the total kilowatt hours, and we know
We know what the
so
population
we
is,
can
so-
make it work. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that'd be fascinating too, because then we can compare directly with water use intensity as well and see kind of overall trends per capita in both water and energy.
Yeah.
But I also like the percent renewable energy too. I think that's a good metric to include.
Yeah, although, a big portion of that is out of the town's control because it's the way the data comes, like as Excel changes its mix, that's going to change. So I think it's still really useful to see, like, if that's improving, even if it's because of what Excel's doing and not because of what the town's doing, because they're adding more wind farms or whatever. But
Also, if we explore like community solar or something in the future,
Right.
that would be something that we could, move that needle a little bit ourselves. So I
right,
think
we can
still-
outperform Excel's base
Yep.
mix. Right. Okay, great. Water, some measure of water use, into how much water is used per person. I would expect this data would all come from the town. But I don't know that we've actually talked about water usage data on this committee since I've been a part of it. So I'm looking around the room to see if anybody has a good insight into if we have data existing about annual water usage.
We're probably in a
In the
pretty
town.
good position with that, considering we have our own metro districts, so it shouldn't be hard to get, even if they already. already have it. I would have thought maybe Martin can like provide
We'll
us
drag you
with
back up
some
again.
highlights.
It's just my time to be here. So I'm glad to help with that one. So the town has its own utility. Superior Metro District number 1 established the town's water and wastewater and reuse and storm, maybe not storm utilities. And then the town, when the districts were absorbed, or before the districts were absorbed, the town took over SMD1. So we have a couple of decades worth of water consumption for both potable, non-pot available, down to kind of the monthly consumption. So that's an easier one to provide. That's existing data we'd be glad to share.
Excellent.
And I think in that case, if we did any comparisons, I think Louisville does less per capita. They also have more aggressive rates, its conservation rates for water than we do.
Okay. When you say non-potable,
Block tiers.
you mean reclaimed water? Coming out of
I'm sure there's a couple of different terms for it, but non-potable water that's not eligible for consumption is what the town uses to provide irrigation water in all of our facilities, and then any business or commercial users who have irrigation systems in town are required to use that reuse system. So when the water utility was established here in around 1999, it was a newer idea at the time, just because of the way the development happened here. The majority of the town was able to have a reuse water system, a non-potable irrigation water system that in lots of ways parallels our potable water system that most communities don't have. It's been retrofitted in a lot of communities. Louisville's had a chance to add some reuse lines, I think down Dillon. I remember seeing a capital project for that a couple of years ago. So it's something that's been added in other jurisdictions to have partially treated water used to irrigate. That's kind of the long and short of it.
We don't irrigate with ditch water around here, do we?
No. The water that the town has, there is some raw water that we can use. We have the ability to use raw water that's not treated from our reservoir, and that occasionally comes up depending on the consumption and how hot it is and what the irrigation needs are at the time. It's an option that the town has. We don't typically do.
I'm sorry, I know you want to finish your metrics. I have one question about water, though. So there was that long discussion, maybe 3 years running, about getting a computerized watering system for the town. Did that actually make the water use go down?
It did.
Yay.
I'm happy to report. So Lisa's remembering a project from 2007 and 2008.
What was that lady's name? She was short and dark hair.
The previous Parks and Rec director, before I was
Yeah, what was
in
her
that
name?
position, was Juanita Dominguez.
Juanita, right.
And so in the position I was in at the time, along with the park superintendent, Molly McLaughlin, we worked, we kind of inherited a project from Juanita at the time, and we spent a good couple of years working on having a centralized irrigation system, which is the project that Lisa's referring to, and making that switch and having, rather than a couple of hundred clocks that had to be manually changed and manually calibrated or manually turned off and on if there was a significant rain event, was a great enhancement to the level of service and the ability for our water utility to just be more efficient. So that was a great project from a while ago.
I think that needs to be taken to the residential sector. I mean, I saw that you guys offer rebates for advanced controllers, but I don't know if people even know you can actually get really smart, irrigation controllers that are tied into your phones and have rain sensors and all that kind of stuff. I think there's an education gap there.
Sure,
And you see it. You see it when it's raining and the sprinklers are running around town. I mean, that's the best data right there that show that people don't have those types of
It'd be
systems.
good to prepare something for that for the spring.
Yeah, it'd be great to do more education around it, because we do include in the newsletters, but I agree, I don't think people are aware of that.
Yeah.
That might be a great replacement for the light bulbs as the giveaway for next year.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's a good
coupons or something for
It's usually like-
irrigation clocks.
idea. A few months
I think
Well, actually-
Ratio is kind of the leading
Yeah.
product on the market right now for that.
And I got a Beehive, which is similar. It's a little bit lower cost, but
Yeah.
the town superior actually covered the entire cost of that through their rebates. So
Yeah.
offered a $100 rebate, and it was $100. So it was a fantastic deal. So I got a fully computerized system for free, basically.
I mean, I kind of compare this to like the wave of Wi-Fi thermostats. You know, those kind of broke into the market when the Nest was this fancy, cool thing to have hanging on your wall, and now everybody has them. It's like we need to get there with water controllers.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the cheapies that were installed in our houses when they were built. And I'm guilty of that too. I don't have a fancy system, but I turn off my sprinklers whenever it rains. So.
Not
Yeah, I
yet.
used to do that.
Most people don't. Most
Not
people
yet.
don't. I
That's
think,
because I
yeah,
didn't
honestly.
really realize they had those out there, so.
Yeah, mine's really awesome. It just automatically turns off the system whenever there's rain, and it increases it if there's drought or really hot conditions. And so it kind of dynamically changes depending on the plants it's watering. And
Except saved my plants when I was.
I mean, we could probably use the town as a case study for that. You
Yeah.
know, put that in the literature about that.
Yeah.
How much water the town saved.
That's a
Sure.
cool idea.
Well, yeah, just having a computerized system obviously is going to help.
I mean, all the labor costs, I'm sure, were tremendous, but the water itself, it's all the same grass, all the same
it's through the
climate.
town superior. Yeah, it's their water.
Yeah,
rebates.
thankfully the digital controllers are now widely available. Like ASEA has one. If you just go over to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can see several different brands.
Yeah.
And they almost make it idiot-proof. Even I could figure one out. Almost.
But maybe, Michelle, to your point, in the spring we could have kind of a more focused educational campaign around that to
Yeah,
help
leading
people
up
be
to
aware
the
of it.
spring when everybody's getting ready to turn everything back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, since we're going off.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think
and
that'd be
that's a
excellent.
really great idea. 'Cause-
Maybe we'll add that to the work plan for next year.
Yeah, I didn't realize we did that.
Yeah, that's really cool, and we've got all sorts of other excellent water rebates for other
We've
things
done like
too.
the
so.
water assessment thing, which that was kind of a funny story in and of itself. Apparently, you can't really do it very well in most houses. So I'm like, well, why do you even do it? But anyways, that's another story for a week.
Okay, great. We'll come back to it. Great.
Each
My
one has its own
takeaway on
sidebar.
that's useful. My takeaway on water is that Martin can help get the data.
Maybe focusing on potable water is the way to go, since that's kind of the main thing that is energy
focus on
intensive.
potable
Well, because none of the houses would use non-potable, so.
Hopefully.
Can't use non-potable.
Yeah.
It's regulated by the state. And
So
the
only the towns, open spaces and businesses?
Residences can't control reuse water is basically what the state statute
So if we
requires.
can't control that, then there's no real reason to have that.
Not for reuse, but for the
Yeah.
potable water that's used for residential application, I think is what
Yeah,
they're
that'd be
The
great.
big to focus on. Great. Great. Okay. The other two categories are mobility, aka transportation. Transportation didn't fit in the box, so we called it mobility. We talked about a couple opportunities here. We were not sure what we thought the best metric would be. What I've listed here, which the county could get from the DMV, is the percentage of vehicles registered in Superior that are electric vehicles, which could be a really cool stat to follow over time, as we think that's increasing as that market grows. An alternative would be a stat around vehicle miles traveled, which is a common transportation metric that was calculated as part of the greenhouse gas inventory. It's less clear if they can really update that every year, but she's going to investigate and see what they have around that. So those would be a couple options around transportation. And then we talked about air quality. It's air quality, this would be about a measure of the pollutants in our air that we breathe, some type of pollutants. This is a little bit less something the town can control by itself. It's more regional. However, it does affect people's health who live here, and so it could actually be really relevant to track. It's, yes.
Didn't we get some monitors because of Rocky Flats?
I remember the item you're talking about, Lisa. I don't ultimately think the board decided to purchase
You
air
bought them?
monitors, but I think there is some air monitoring equipment coordinated through the folks who monitor and coordinate the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council to track that. So
I could have sworn we had two or something that town manager wanted. Okay.
talked about, but I think there were some other sources of that data.
Sorry, I just,
Yeah, so there may be a couple sources. So Leah was going to check with the county health department who she believes has some statistics and get their advice on like actually which pollutants are most meaningful to track. So the county directly may be the source, but also I'm hearing that there might be some monitoring already going on related to Rocky Flats.
it was when they were going to widen the highway up there, and we were worried it was going to disturb and release bad things down Wind here.
Okay, great. Well, I guess the feedback I've heard on a couple items, maybe consider a couple additions, feel free and expand it beyond one page. What I propose doing is to continue working on actually gathering the data and making sure what we think is available, and then have the opportunity to get feedback from the town board. I think ultimately it'd be great if we had something we could update once a year and report to the town board, and that the board was actually kind of endorsed this as a town endorsed way of monitoring our performance against that town board goal. And that would all be a good first step. And then additional things beyond that could be benchmarking against other towns or actually proposing goals that the town board would formally adopt and enact policy to support.
I see a lot of head nods. I think you got it.
Okay, great. So I'll continue getting data from various sources on this and report back. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I was just going to comment as a trustee, I think this is great. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing that we've been asking to see is let's do some benchmarking, let's do some reporting. And the other thing is if we can do some things as part of it that we can start to really hone in and encourage our residents, this is what you can do to help us move the needle on some of these.
Categories instead of it being a very general one.
Yeah.
that you have lots of things
because,
you can change on.
most of the things you talked about tonight, I'm aware of, but I'm a trustee, and I'm not. When I wasn't a trustee, I wasn't aware of. So I think we could use it as a tool to really promote some of the things we have available in town, and maybe we can start moving the needle on
Really
some
good
of them.
feedback.
Excellent.
But I think it's excellent, really
Okay.
Yeah,
excellent.
it is fantastic. Thanks so much.
All right, great. So we'll run with this and we'll see, report back when we actually have numbers.
And I would say too on the transportation, I think electric vehicle share is a good metric to use, especially because the town board has expressed interest in promoting EVs through having more charging stations available and things like that. So I think that's directly relevant to the feedback we've heard so far. So I think that's excellent.
Tesla would probably really enjoy it too.
It's consistent with what the board asked for in that meeting, the dinner meeting we had.
Yeah.
It is.
Exactly. So,
Very good.
yeah, so thanks so much.
So you don't have to do that collecting. Leah's helping, or?
Well, there's a couple sort of like for water, Leah's not doing that. I would go to Martin. And for this trash data or waste data you guys have talked about that already exists, could it be you or Jim? You for the town or Jim for the
Meeting notes
HOA?
from maybe 5 or 6 months ago. Our annual totals it'll be in one of your emails from
That's
maybe
true.
5 or
Okay.
6 months ago.
Can you send that document to everybody? Or to me?
Yes.
I just curious to think about it and think,
Yeah. Yeah, look at it a little bit more. If you
Yeah.
want to see it. I mean, do you have time
think
for this
about if
one?
there's anything that should be added or
Yeah.
just think about it.
Probably.
I know, I feel bad. I'm like, you good with taking it all on? Because I'm like, I certainly cannot offer to take any of it on, but.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, one of the things Leah and I talked about was that it has to be easy enough to collect that it's reasonable that a bunch of volunteers who only do something once a month can manage it.
Okay.
So that's what we're shooting for. And if something becomes too crazy, we have to go to 10 different places, then that might be a good reason for us to look for something different. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you don't need volunteers?
I'm okay for now. I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds
Yeah, reach out
good.
if you need additional help.
Was there anything else on the agenda?
Okay. Oh, wait, I'm going to introduce an unrelated item that came out of the meeting with Leah. She reminded us that the county's sustainability fund matching grant program, which the town has benefited from in the past, but did not apply last year. This year's deadline to apply is October 12th. It's up to $15,000 that the county will provide. She strongly encouraged the town to apply for something and doesn't want to see us waste
What?
the opportunity to get $15,000.
What are the metrics, parameters that we can apply for?
Anything that advances sustainability goals, with some exceptions. For instance, we can't do it for electric vehicle infrastructure because the state offers a separate program for that. We could ask for funds if we think we're going to need a decent amount of funds to support a consultant study about electric vehicles. They would fund that. She suggested that they can be flexible with the matching part of it. For instance, if we were, funding, if we could just show that we're funding either in kind through volunteer hours, or if we can show the town is funding sustainability in one area, they might make the matching grant in an unrelated area. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the same thing. So she's opening the door and saying they want to be flexible and get us to apply for something. However, the application is due October 12th, which is
Are you able
like
to help
before
us with that, Martin?
our next meeting.
Yeah,
It would be up
that
for us to.
Karen, yeah.
Well, how about paper bag handouts? And
$15,000 would buy us a lot of paper bags.
Well, how about compostable Ziploc bags? I think that's another thing that a lot of
Pretty
people
large, yeah.
don't realize exists, are compostable Ziplocs. Like a good example is like the schools, like my wife wanted to pack a bunch of stuff in regular Ziploc bags, and I said, no, let's pack this in compostable Ziploc bags. And you see kids bring stuff home in Ziploc bags from schools too. There's like a lot of waste in our schools up here too. We probably talked about that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to just throw ideas.
Yeah, we need ideas. Basically, my sense is if we were going to apply to something, basically, first of all, the town staff would have to prepare an application, so there would be work involved, and this committee ideally would provide recommendations on what we think is a priority. So, bags and items is one thing. Since we've already talked about funding a consultant, even if it's not a full $15,000, we could just propose that they cover that cost or cover half that cost and save the town a few bucks. That would be an option, or we could come up with other creative proposals.
Do we have paired recycling and trash bins in all the parks?
We
That's
do,
what you
so
said. He wasn't quite sure earlier what the number is that we're not at.
that's exactly right. So I can't remember what the number is. It's a little over 100, and we have almost 100 that are now the dual. And that was a result of one of the projects that the staff applied for a grant a couple of years ago for, and that was before the yard waste site expansion happened. So there's been a couple of really good projects that the town has been able to partner with the county for this grant. The reality is we don't have any current projects that would make sense for what we have on our current work plan for this year, for next year, and our capital plan that would make sense from a staffing capacity to add to our existing work plan, in addition to budgeting for as a match. So it's a little bit of both. You need to have a good project. I understand the county is very interested in having the one-off projects, but like this committee has discussed, the county isn't interested in providing via the tax change that happened last year an ongoing revenue source to make something available on an ongoing basis. The one-off is fantastic, but it needs to be something I think that really works for the town.
I have an idea for a project. So what we talked about hiring a consultant for that. Maybe what we could do is hire a consultant for a different. So everybody in trash is getting away from the metric that's here. Diversion rate is a metric people think is not a good one because it's very susceptible to the economy and a bunch of other things. It's not a strong metric. You can go up or down based on a base closing, stuff like that. It's not a great metric, and it doesn't. Especially the problem that I have with it is it doesn't tell you what to do next. If you've got let's say you're 50%, it doesn't tell. It's retrospective. It doesn't tell you what to do next. So we've developed and it's starting to catch on a metric called percent recoverables remaining. But in order to do that, you have to do a bit of a waste sort. It doesn't have to be a massively complicated waste sort, but we could do, and it's being done in a lot of the leading places. Alameda County is now doing it, and Portland Metro is now doing it, and a bunch of other places. So we could potentially fund that, and what it does is it tells you exactly what's in the waste stream, so you know how to better gear your next education program. You can set goals. A lot of cities like Alameda started at 35% of the waste could still be recovered. And so they said, oh my God, we thought we had this great recycling rate, but we've got a bunch of stuff here that's being thrown away. And what is it you're telling people? You're telling them to take it out of the trash, put it into recycling and organics and whatever. How do you figure out if you're achieving that goal? How do you figure out if they're doing what you told them to? You got to look at the trash and see if they're taking it out of the trash and putting it in the other stuff. So one thing that would be really easy would be to hire a consultant to do a waste comp, a simple waste comp that would let us start the process of setting a goal and moving toward a goal.
About how much is that, do you think?
It could be done within that budget, easy. In fact,
Well, the reason I
if we
asked
do that
is
2
'cause-
season sort, which would be even better. If we did a 2 season sort, it would be a good thing.
Because the reason I ask is it's like the other portion could be maybe helping find this data and helping get that all sorted out for us and kind of giving it set up so that we can just follow up on it, take it out of your sole responsibility. So like the consultant to look those parts and then any leftover money used for bio bags.
So anyway,
I think that's
could
a
write
really
up
good
something
idea,
if people wanted to back that, I could write up something and
I mean,
massage it.
even with that data, it still sounds like we have an impasse with the HOA and curbside composting and all this other stuff too. I think right now we already know, probably, I'm guilty of it too, grass clippings are probably a big thing that could be diverted from our waste stream.
Yes.
But we don't have a program to divert them. And so we can pay someone to tell us
We have a
that.
yard waste facility.
I know, but no one takes their stuff. I mean, I don't. I shouldn't say no one. I should watch my generalizations. But
I do.
Yeah.
But really close by, so.
Yeah, okay. But I guess I'm just saying, it's like, I think this study would be more powerful if we could get on the track of having
That's
curbside
why
compost.
you do it. You
Yeah.
do it to say, oh my God, 60% of what's left in here is compostable.
Is that going to
It is
move
stupid.
the HOA though?
Who knows?
Do you wanna know
It's
about
going to be better
the HOA?
than, gee, there's a lot of waste.
A lot of people
Yeah.
actually speaking up about the HOA. So the education piece of it is pretty critical.
That's the thing.
If we could get residents on board, maybe we start using directed mailers and stuff too to make them aware of the
And-
gaps like you're talking about. 'Cause
And gee, there's a lot of cardboard
residents-
left. The Amazon effect is huge, Don't, spend the minute and put it in the bin, whatever.
So if you think it would build a good case to move.
It has in other places, but
Okay, I mean,
who knows,
you have more data than I do,
It's
but,
fine.
yeah, that's good.
I'm just trying to,
Good
I
suggestion.
just wanted to think of what we could use if I ruled the world, what are some of the things I would possibly think could be funded? And I think that's a goal that we could, also, that would be a clearer and forward-thinking goal than just waste diversion. So
What would the cost of that be? Do you have any idea?
She asked me. And
Within that,
yeah, and I
within
talked
that
about-
grant is
yeah.
what she said.
Right, okay. Makes a lot of sense.
I think that's an interesting thought
There are a number
process.
of firms around that do that, and we could help. So any members who wanted to help sort for a while, that could be a contribution toward the grant, the matching or whatever.
So they do a sample, you do what, one in the summertime, one in the winter
I
time?
think two sort would be especially important because of the yard waste component,
I agree, yeah.
So Martin,
at least for the first year.
Yeah.
how much is like the budget that we have kind of extra for our little, not frivolous uses, but that we've currently been buying, like
It's
about
not
bulbs and
frivolous.
stuff like that?
But the committees all have about $5,000 available to them.
That's still a lot
for
of bags. So we
Discretionary items that are related to
Cover
the
that
purview
gap
of that.
there. Okay.
And it's heartening to hear that they didn't ask what's an LED like they did what's a CFL when we started giving those out. That was sad. What's a CFL?
Right, well, yeah, if you wouldn't mind just writing something up, that would be.
I'll try to
that.
put something together and you'll decide if you like it or hate it.
Okay.
Excellent,
I
thanks.
think it's worth considering and definitely with the focus on what you're talking about. What do we really need? We know.
Well, whenever I talk to Jim Payne about our trash pickup, he's like, well, you all got 2 96-gallon containers.
Yeah.
I'm like, do we need 2 96-gallon
That's why we need
containers?
pay as you throw, and that's the thing I can't get them to accept.
I'd rather have one of those be a
Look at-
compostable
I'm
container.
with you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just,
I'd rather just keep it simple and just do that.
The smart cities are going to 96 for organics, 96 for recycling, 32 and,
Yeah.
choices for the trash, and then going to every other week of trash collection. and weekly organics. That and every other week
That's
recycling. That is the ideal.
And that's spot on with my personal habits. I think I'd put that container out once a month.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
That's the maximizing diversion for the minimum stops.
And we know with people in reality, people not sitting here is that mental game. You know, if you see that small container that is your going to landfill stuff, it makes you think to sort things.
It does.
But when you got 2 big nights, yeah, so I'm preaching to the choir. So.
Oh, I know, but it's tricky.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to
All
stop
right.
taking walks on Mondays because I'm like, oh,
Thanks, Lisa.
people, I can't
Yeah,
bother.
see what it says.
Awesome. Thanks,
So yeah, I think
Lisa.
that's a great idea for that money. Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
And then they said they might give us some matching money. Does that mean that 15 could double potentially, or?
No, 15 is what is the maximum that they would provide, but they won't give it in isolation. It's intended to be to match the town's contribution.
Oh, the town has to
Right.
kick
The
in.
town has to put some skin in the game. Is the
So
idea.
they're saying
If I
they
remember
might,
correctly, it's a 60-40
overlook the true
match, but
numbers and use some of
I might be
our
wrong.
physical efforts
Okay.
to offset that. So it's the same number.
Yeah. The flexibility would be if we said, well, the town is funding one study on EV, electric vehicles, and we want the county to match by funding the second study that's on waste diversion.
Yeah.
She was indicating they could give us that flexibility.
Because,
For the cost share.
because we're doing something.
We're doing one thing and then
We don't need more for that,
So-
but we need more to be able to do more. Okay, that's cool.
I heard Lisa was going to write something up and then propose it, and then there's maybe a few factors at play about whether we submit. The committee can make its recommendation to the town staff on that point.
Awesome.
Sure, it's not something I have currently on my work time, but it would need to be something that the town manager agrees to adjust some of these
Yeah.
and put it on their plate.
Yeah, so that'd be the additional hurdle to overcome there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all that I have.
So-
We've already talked about number 7.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we need to discuss the town's diversion goal. I think we've already had a pretty good discussion about that. So, and in the interest of time, I'm happy to write up some of the pros newsletter bullet points. These are just for the newsletter that goes out summarizing some of the work that we've been doing each month. And so it's basically just kind of summary bullet points from our meeting notes.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to spin this? Something I've been chewing on since I got accepted in this committee. Do we want to spin it into more of a sustainability tip corner? These are things you can do to be more sustainable, instead of telling them what we talked about.
Yeah. Well, I think in this particular one, that's for the Parks, Recs, and Open Space meeting notes. So it's sort of shoehorned in anyway. That's just sort of an update on what the advisory
Kind of
committees are.
standard reporting protocol for the city is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's sort of just an
Each
update
of the
on what
groups is
advisory committees
responsible.
are
I think it's
working
part
on.
of the coordinated effort that the board
Okay.
wanted to have for each of the advisory committees is to chat a little bit and communicate with the community about what's going on. If you
Okay.
wanted to have a sustainability tip corner, or anybody in any of the committees was interested in having some information to share, it's something that this committee, different versions of this committee have done in the past, where they had monthly or quarterly newsletter articles that they would forward to staff and we would include.
Yeah, because who's doing it for us now? Because it used to be assigned and kind of stopped being assigned. Who's doing that?
I think
It
for
was-
a while,
the
Boulder County
committee
was.
chose not to forward me some stuff.
Okay, and I know you've said
And it's been on
before,
your
like,
work
oh, if you
plan.
send me something, I'll put it in, and never have. So I think that's actually a good comment. Like, you're welcome to submit
Sure.
anytime, and normally the newsletter deadline is about when for the time?
About a week before the start of the month,
Okay.
Okay.
usually around the 20th.
So we're sort of, any of us are always welcome to be like, hey, can you pop this in? Or, hey,
Sure, different
how about
members
you
of this group
redesign it?
have
'Cause I
forwarded
like
stuff
what
for
you
years.
said. That's
Whether
kind
it
of
was
been one of our goals,
light
about
bulbs.
putting the stuff in the newsletters, at least getting it in there, but it would be nice if it's just like a simple little, here's the special things you can do this month. I mean, December's always easy because we always do like alternative wrap and stuff like that for Christmas presents.
The holiday gift giving, I would
Yeah, like
just
that's
reuse
easy.
the previous ones because I didn't get any updated ones.
But it would be fun, yeah, like if every month there was sort of something about like this month's tips.
Yeah, I think that'd be super valuable. I know in the past we have had some tips through the Energy Smart program through Boulder County, but I think having a designated energy corner or sustainability corner would be really useful. So yeah, would love to
Okay,
support
something to
that.
consider. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be
Like,
fantastic.
Literally, you find something, shoot it, I guess technically to Karen, yeah, shoot it to Karen and she'll get it into the newsletter,
Okay.
which is awesome. That's the nice thing, is like there's literally no rules, besides the obvious. we're always welcome to send more to the newsletter than we do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like, give me a chance, I'll make up some rules.
Appreciate holding up a newspaper.
Yeah. Electronically. Awesome.
All right, well, thanks so much, everyone. If there aren't any other further comments, I think we can.
I just, and this might have to be a discussion for October
Sure.
11th, but have you guys considered a plastic bag ban in Town of Superior?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not a ban, but
That was shortly
um,
before.
Or a fee to use them, kind of like what Boulder did.
Yeah, that was right before I came on board for this committee, so
the
I'm
last
not.
time that we did that was like, what, 3? Oh, it was bad.
I just, it's been in the news more and more towns and cities are adopting it. And, I was curious, and maybe you guys know this, for when you do have to use a plastic bag and you have to pay for it at the store, does that become a revenue stream for the city? Like, does the store get part of it and the city gets part of it?
I actually don't know how that works.
I think everybody does it
Or that
differently.
goes?
Everybody does it differently. I can look through my old notes and kind of.
Because I was thinking of revenue streams for our committee to fund sustainability.
That's true.
And that was the other one that could feed back into buying compostable bags or whatever it is.
Yeah, we pretty much got
Trash
brushed over the
bags.
coals
Yeah.
when we tried to do that. I could.
But that might be
I need to go.
All right,
You're good.
thanks for
Bye,
everything.
Martin. Good to see you.
But we could table this for next time to respect the clock, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy.
I'd like to add that to the agenda for October 11th. I'd
Sure.
Kind of get some history on it.
love to hear the history. And all
Yeah, I'd be
that
curious as
stuff.
well because I've heard bits and pieces about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's definitely worth exploring again and seeing if it's something we can
Yeah.
gently try to reintroduce. Given the
I'm
feedback
a
last
fan
time.
of stopping the source of solid waste.
Absolutely.
Not only just the recycling side, but the source side too. So,
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And,
First are reduce.
yeah. So anyway, all right, that's all I have.
No, it's
I
interesting.
got lots of other ideas.
And it's
we'll
not a
take
sore
them in due
subject
time.
at all. And I think maybe, I just need to be a more creative look at it because, they were extremely anti it when we brought it. We spent,
This was the town board at the time?
yeah, we spent quite a bit of time
Okay.
getting ready for it, proposing lots of.
But I think the flip side is, the town board is going to change fairly significantly in the upcoming.
It hasn't come up since I've been on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think
Yeah.
it was
How
like
long
a
is
couple
that?
years before you were on.
2 years. And
I think it was about 2 years before
completely new
then.
board.
And I think especially with some of these types of metrics that Mike was talking about, we can make a better case for the importance of this and talk about what other communities are doing. So I think it's a good time to bring it up.
When we did it
It's
last.
become more acceptable to.
Yeah.
I think the culture, whatever, probably Boulder took care of the icebreaker for us, and now all the
Yeah.
other communities are
And
jumping on
that's
board.
exactly when we started to kind of jump on board and just got the pushback. I don't know, I think I completely agree with you. There's lots of ways to go about it.
Might be a better climate now, political climate, to bring that back in.
I
Okay.
still think though too, it's like maybe along with that, maybe our first goal is going to be trying to educate people which bags can be recycled because it amazes me how many people don't recycle as many plastic bags as they can.
Well, and just plastic wrapping in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be recycled there.
And I've got a massive bin in my garage, it's probably
Yeah.
sadly one of those things you can't stop getting certain things in. But I make sure to recycle every one of them I can. Awesome,
Great. Well,
that's a
nice
great
to
idea.
meet you all.
You too.
Yeah, you as well. And thank you both again.
Sort of like boring like intro to everything, but I know after this we'll kind of get the ground running again.
Yep. Let's hope. So, we can go ahead and adjourn for today, but thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So who shuts?
Thanks for coming.
Oh, it was interesting.
I know, it's kind of like boringish topics and quiet since we had new people and.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. It's the first time I've said it.
Yeah, we'd love to have a trustee. We used to have a trustee every time, and it's been a while since we had anybody, so.
Well, Chris Hansen was supposed to be stepping, but he has been